If someone looked from the outside and said I was the luckiest woman on the Majestic Spirit cruise ship, I might have laughed. But who really sees the heart of a forgotten grandmother? The last week of June in Tampa always brings the real start of summer. The scent of sunscreen in the air, children running in the yards, families packing their bags for those long-awaited vacations. I packed mine too. I folded my linen dresses, the blue sandals I bought on sale at Walmart, and even took my old Kodak camera, the one I used for Brian's birthday parties, my only son. But that morning, I packed everything without an invitation. The phone rang. It was Brian, always busy, always in a hurry. "Mom, we're heading to the port early. Rachel booked a spa session, so it'll be a rush. Do you want me to help with the bags?" Silence. I heard a muffled giggle in the background. It was Brooke, my granddaughter. "No need, Mom. We'll manage. You should get some rest." Outwardly, I smiled. Inside, there was a cold, sharp ache. They were going, all of them, and they didn't include me. The TV in the living room showed images of the Miami port, with giant ships ready to set sail. On the company's website, the Majestic Spirit shone. Cruise to the Bahamas, themed parties, the trip of the year. And there I was, alone in the kitchen, listening to my own heart sink as if I'd missed the last train. Rachel called me later, with that sweet lawyer voice that sells kindness. "Maggie, dear, we thought with your arthritis, the ship would be uncomfortable. And you know, those parties for young people, we just don't want you to feel out of place. We just don't want you to feel out of place." That was it. They didn't want me there so I wouldn't be a bother. Brooke posted on Instagram, "Family cruise, finally, only the best company." And Tyler, my grandson, commented, "Grandma's missing, the only one, my boy." That night, I tried to convince myself it was for the best. Vacations without the elderly are easier, less awkward for them, more carefree. But the truth cut deep inside. I was the disposable old lady, the dead weight. On the morning of the departure, I made a point to stop by the port. I wore a red dress, new lipstick, and a forced smile. I pretended it was just to say, "Hi," but deep down, I wanted to be there, part of it, part of the family. They arrived in a rented SUV. Rachel, impeccable. Brooke with huge sunglasses, her blonde hair perfect. Brian barely looked at me. The couple's friends, all young, loud, with that superior attitude that laughs at old folks. They came over, greeting me with that fake enthusiasm reserved for retired teachers and grandmothers at family parties. "You really don't want to board, Maggie?" one of the friends asked, already knowing the answer. Everyone smiled, but I saw the look between Brian and Rachel. I saw Brooke, glancing sideways, texting on her phone. I was the unnecessary decoration at the farewell. As they walked away, I clearly heard Rachel's voice to the captain. "Luckily, she's not coming. Imagine having to take care of an old lady during the cruise." And the captain, laughing, "Much better this way. The trip will be much lighter for you." My throat tightened. I saw Tyler approach, visibly uncomfortable. "Grandma, don't mind them. I wanted you with us." I hugged my grandson like he was my last anchor in a sea of disappointment. I took a step back. I watched my family disappear among passengers and suitcases, hugged by arrogant friends, pampered by the captain. And there, alone on the dock, I made a promise to myself. I would never again let them treat me as if I were invisible. The ship left. The sun shone high. The sea reflected promises that weren't for me. But only I knew the secret buried at the bottom of that ship, and how, soon, everything would change. If you want to hear even stronger stories without ads, join the VIP group using the link in the pinned comment. If there's a pain worse than being left behind, it's realizing, without anyone having to say it, that your presence isn't wanted, but the universe has its own way of setting things right. And that night, everything started to change. I got home, my suitcase still closed in the hallway. I sat in the old armchair in the living room, listening to the echo of Rachel and her friends' laughter. I picked up my phone. Tyler had sent me a message. "Grandma, I really wish you were here. Don't mind them. If you can, write me back." I read it 3 times. I took a deep breath. My grandson was the only bridge that still connected me to the family, the last trace of true affection. The next morning, I turned on the TV. The news was showing the Majestic Spirit's departure. Luxury ship sets sail for the Caribbean with celebrities on board. I recognized Rachel's silhouette, smiling next to the captain, posing for pictures. It didn't take long for the first photos to pop up on Instagram. The group at the casino, the glowing pool, everyone beaming, except Tyler. In most of the pictures, he was off to the side, looking lost. I tried to distract myself, made pancakes with maple syrup, a tradition since Brian was little. But with every bite, my throat tightened. My phone rang, an unknown number. "Mrs. Bennett, this is the Majestic Cruises office. Could you come in for a meeting with our legal department?" My knees shook. "A meeting? Now?" "It's about renewing your partnership contract, ma'am." The voice was formal, polite, leaving no room to refuse. I grabbed the first taxi of the morning. The Majestic Cruises building was all glass, with American flags waving at the entrance. The air conditioning was freezing, the smell of strong coffee and fresh donuts in the air. "Welcome, Mrs. Bennett." A young executive led me into a meeting room. I sat down, looking at the picture on the wall, a huge photo of the Majestic Spirit crossing the blue sea. "You hold a significant share in our company. The new contract grants you a higher profile in the ship's management, including veto power over strategic decisions." He slid a contract across the table. Inside, I exploded with panic and anger. "They have no idea. No one in my family knows." I signed. The amount? $300,000, paid in 3 installments. Enough money to change anyone's future. My secret was safe, for now. I left the meeting trembling with emotion. My family, so focused on leaving me out, had no idea of the power I held in my hands. That night, Tyler called me secretly from his cabin on the ship. "Grandma, I wish I was there with you. All they care about is partying. It's not actually fun." My voice cracked. "I love you, Tyler, and I promise, before you know it, you'll understand who I really am in this story." Rachel, Brian, Brooke, and their friends were posting snobbish stories from the fancy restaurant dinner, making fun of the boring old people at the nearby tables. I listened to the audio clips, feeling my chest tighten more and more. "She would have just gotten in the way, right?" Rachel laughed, thinking the video was private. That night, I drank wine alone on the porch, looking up at the Tampa sky. Every star seemed to laugh at me, but I laughed right back. If only they knew the tide is turning. If you've made it this far, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. You won't believe what's still to come. During cruise week, my days in Tampa felt endless. With every new post, Brian, Rachel, and their friends made a point of showing just how well they were doing without me. Photos of champagne at sunset, lavish tables on the deck, laughter around the infinity pool. And always in the background, Brooke, my granddaughter, laughing out loud at some joke, admiring her own reflection in her phone. I tried not to let it get to me, but Rachel's voice, captured in a video that went viral in the family group, hit me hard. Good thing Maggie stayed behind. Imagine her here, watching every glass, complaining about the music volume. She'd ruin the whole trip. Even Tyler, my dear grandson, was ignored in several photos. I felt sorry for him. He tried to send me updates secretly through WhatsApp. "Grandma, Brooke barely talks to me. Dad only hangs out with the captain and the rich friends. I feel weird here. I miss you." I wanted to hug him, to tell him everything would be okay. But deep down, I knew that trip was just another act in the big theater my family had been staging for years. On the 4th night, I couldn't take it anymore. I went down to the Tampa port and stood watching the ships lit up on the horizon. There was the Majestic Spirit, so close yet so far. I smelled the salty air, felt the damp breeze, heard the seagulls crying. I closed my eyes. I deserved to be there. Not out of pride, but because no one, absolutely no one, has the right to turn a mother or grandmother into an invisible burden. When I got home, there was a white envelope under my door. "Important," it read on the front. I opened it. It was a copy of the newly signed contract confirming my status as majority partner and my rights to oversee and manage the ship. At the bottom, in gold letters, "Majestic Spirit, the sea is yours." That night, Tyler sent me a voice message, his voice shaky. "Grandma, everyone went to dinner with the captain and his friends. They told me to order pizza in the cabin. I just wish you were here." I felt my heart break. No one realizes the power of a simple gesture until they see someone they love being forgotten. My mind was made up. The moment for my turning point would come, and when it did, no one would ever dare call me a burden again. If you've ever gone through something like this, if you've been left out of something important just because they thought you were a burden, share your story in the comments. So many people need to know they're not alone. I woke up before sunrise, listening to the distant sound of horns at the port and the creaking of ships rocking with the tide. On the kitchen table, the open contract stared at me like an invitation to be brave. It was more than just a piece of paper. It was my story, waiting to be rewritten. I picked up the phone. I called the cruise line's office, using my most formal English and my married name, the one almost no one in my family remembered. "This is Margaret Ann Cook. I need to speak with the director of the Majestic Spirit. It's a matter of utmost priority." I heard a respectful silence on the other end. Minutes later, the manager's voice was almost reverent. "Mrs. Cook, your access and suite are ready. The captain will receive your instructions as soon as you board. Do you need transportation?" I felt a dangerous kind of joy, the kind that's part adrenaline, part fear, and part certainty that you're about to do something big. "No, thank you. I'll come on my own." I packed my small suitcase with dresses I'd only worn on special nights and a box of old family photos. I looked at myself in the mirror before leaving. I saw a 67-year-old woman, yes, with deep wrinkles, short gray hair, and eyes marked by time. But I also saw an indestructible strength, the strength of someone who survived widowhood, loneliness, and the disregard of those who were supposed to protect her. My hands were shaking in the Uber to the port. I watched Tampa Bay glittering under the Florida sun, palm trees swaying, couples with rolling suitcases smiling excitedly. No one can imagine the private war a mother can fight inside her heart. When I arrived, I looked for Tyler, and there he was in the main hall, alone, staring sadly out at the sea. I walked up to him quietly. "Grandma, you're here?" He hugged me like he was 5 years old again. "Don't tell anyone yet," I whispered. "Today we're going to make history." Boarding was discreet, guided by a uniformed staff member. I bypassed the regular passenger line, walked through halls decorated with crystal chandeliers and red carpets, and took the private deck where the captain was waiting. "Mrs. Cook, it's an honor to have you on board." I shook his hand firmly. "The honor will be all mine when this ship is worthy of the families it carries." Later, already settled into a luxurious suite overlooking the ocean, I heard familiar voices in the hallway. Brian, Rachel, Brooke, and their friends, laughing loudly, making jokes, planning an exclusive dinner at the captain's restaurant. "If Maggie were here, she'd want to change the menu," Rachel said, drawing laughter from the group. "She always finds something to complain about," Brooke added, rolling her eyes. But this time, I wasn't invisible. I was just a few steps away, seeing everything, hearing everything, and holding all the power. That morning, the salty breeze brushed my face, and the sky looked bluer than ever. From the balcony of my private suite, I watched the crowded pools, families coming and going, and the fleeting joy of people who have no idea how quickly life can turn upside down. I went down to the breakfast hall. I sat alone at a corner table, but this time, by my own choice. From a distance, I saw Brian and Rachel enjoying themselves with Brooke and their friends, all well-dressed, laughing loudly, completely ignoring my presence. Only Tyler exchanged glances with me, a co-conspirator, trying to hide his nervous smile. At the buffet, I overheard, "I still can't believe she showed up." Rachel's voice was sharp. "Don't worry. The captain said she can stay, but she'll keep her distance," Brian replied, as if I were a bothersome piece of furniture, something tolerated only out of obligation. Their friends joined in, making almost disguised, mean-spirited jokes. "Bet she'll complain about the smell of the food. Hope she doesn't ask to switch rooms again." With each comment, I felt my blood boil, but I swallowed my pride. I've learned that the best revenge is made of silence and power. Soon after, there was a commotion at the ship's reception. 2 VIP guest couples were furious. One was a famous investor from Miami, the other an influential lawyer from New York. A missing suitcase, disappointing service, threats of a lawsuit. The captain, under pressure, was urgently called in. Tyler ran over to me, anxious. "Grandma, there's a huge problem. They're saying they'll sue the ship." "Calm down, sweetheart. Some things only your grandmother can handle." I called the captain for a private conversation, making my role very clear. "I'm not just the owner of this ship. I also know exactly how to handle a crisis." He turned pale. "Mrs. Cook, I didn't realize you were keeping such a close eye on things." "Well, now you do. And if you want to keep your job, treat my guests, all of them, no exceptions, with dignity, including my family." The captain moved quickly. He apologized, promised immediate changes, and rushed off to put out the fire. By lunchtime, the atmosphere had changed. Brian, Rachel, and their friends kept up their silent rejection. But little by little, I noticed their surprise as staff members began treating me with unusual respect. "Do you need anything, Mrs. Cook? Are you comfortable in your suite?" Rachel went pale. Brooke, suspicious, whispered to Brian, "Why is everyone fussing over your mom?" At dinner, their table was the loudest in the main dining room. But at the height of the party, a message from the captain echoed over the loudspeaker. "Would Maggie Cook please report to the captain's deck?" Everyone looked at me, and for the first time, their arrogance faltered. In that moment, I felt I was just beginning to reclaim my dignity. When I reached the captain's deck, the sun was already setting, painting the sea in golden and orange tones. My heart was pounding, but my face showed only composure. There was a small crowd gathered, curious about the unexpected announcement. Among them were Brian, Rachel, Brooke, the couple's friends, the captain, and part of the crew, all anxious, each for their own reasons. The captain cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to make a special announcement. Today, we have the honor of welcoming aboard the owner of this ship, Maggie Cook." Complete silence. Brian turned pale. Rachel froze. Brooke lowered her eyes. The friends, always ready with a joke, didn't find it funny this time. I saw the same disdain in their eyes shift into fear. The captain continued, formal. "Maggie Cook is responsible for ensuring the quality of everyone's experience here. On her behalf, we apologize for any inconvenience." The reaction was a mix of surprise, embarrassment, and uncomfortable murmurs. I walked up to the microphone, took a deep breath, and looked at my family and the other passengers. "Good evening. I was raised to believe that kindness is the greatest form of power. But sometimes, life puts us in situations where we must stand up for ourselves so we aren't swallowed by indifference." Pause. "I've spent the last few days being ignored, looked down on, even ridiculed, by my own family and by people who thought they'd never be caught looking down on anyone." Brian couldn't look at me. Rachel, tense, gripped her wine glass as if she wanted to shatter it. Brooke rolled her eyes but was clearly shaken. I continued, my voice steady. "This ship, these people, this story, all of this has taught me that no one should accept being treated as invisible. Not even the old ladies who so often keep everyone's dreams afloat." There were a few timid claps from the back, but what moved me most was Tyler's gaze, proud, with tears in his eyes. My grandson, the only one who always stood by me. The captain announced the beginning of a new policy of respect and kindness on board, using my name as a reference for any guest who felt mistreated. Right then, I saw the wounded pride in the faces of those who had mocked me, but also, for the first time, a genuine respect in the eyes of those who had never truly seen me. If you've made it this far, subscribe to the channel. There's so much more to come, and no one could have guessed what that night still had in store. As I left the deck, Brian stopped me, his voice trembling. "Mom, why did you never tell us?" I looked him in the eyes. "Because I wanted you to see who I really am for yourselves. Not everyone deserves all the answers. Sometimes the plain truth is enough." And that night, I knew, was only the beginning of the biggest turning point of my life. The news spread through the ship like wildfire. Everyone knew. Everyone stared. Suddenly, that old lady, who was invisible now, had a name, a face, and power. The dining room, once so cold to me, was now full of whispers and curious looks. Brian tried to act natural, but his flushed skin betrayed his shame. Rachel pretended to be dignified, but avoided me. Brooke, who had mocked my outdated dress at the previous dinner, now forced fake smiles. That night, as jazz played in the main hall, I sat alone, or so I thought. Tyler, my grandson, came over with 2 glasses of lemonade. "Can I sit with you, Grandma?" He was the only honest face in that storm of convenience. We talked about music, about how the ship's hamburgers didn't come close to the ones I used to make in Ohio in the 90s. "You know, Grandma, I always thought you were different, stronger. Sometimes, Tyler, being strong just means not giving up when everyone wants you to disappear." In the middle of the night, an incident changed everything. A group of passengers, close friends of the captain, known for demanding special treatment, got into trouble in the VIP section of the casino. There were accusations of discrimination against staff and a small commotion. I was called in as the owner of the ship. Everyone was there, including my son and Rachel, trying to avoid any responsibility. "Mrs. Cook, we need your decision." The captain looked smaller now. I listened to each side, analyzed the situation, and very clearly ordered the expulsion of those responsible, even though they were friends of the captain and known by my family. I explained in front of everyone that respect and justice were more important than any social ties. "If you can't accept the rules on my ship, you're not welcome." Some guests applauded. Others, including Brooke, looked at me as if they were seeing a ghost. Brian stood frozen, speechless. The next morning, the ship's daily paper already read, "Shipowner makes historic decision, defends crew." My phone exploded with messages from other guests thanking me. I even received a handwritten card from a lady named Helen, who'd never had the courage to complain about mistreatment by the staff. She thanked me for being the real deal in charge. And in this atmosphere of tension and justice, Tyler hugged me in the hallway. "If I ever become half the person you are, Grandma, it will have been worth it." I answered softly, my voice trembling. "One day, this ship will be yours, Tyler, because only those who know how to value others deserve to chart the course for them. If you've ever wanted to shout to the world that you deserve respect, like and share. Don't let this story go unnoticed. Your voice might be the next turning point for someone." That night, lying down and looking out at the dark sea through my cabin window, I thought, I'm no longer invisible. But the good kind of revenge was just beginning. The next morning brought a strange silence to the ship. The passengers greeted me with a shy respect, as if I had changed overnight. Tyler, now proud, walked by my side along the deck, smiling at people who used to ignore him. Brian and Rachel avoided crossing paths with me, always making up excuses, and their friends, the ones who always cut me out of conversations, looked down, embarrassed, every time I walked by. In the meeting room, I found the captain waiting for me, less arrogant than before. "Mrs. Cook, I've never seen anything like this. The whole ship is talking about you." "Respect is earned, Captain. The rest is just foam." That same day, the passenger award ceremony took place. Rachel, Brooke, and Brian planned to go on stage to give speeches, just as they had done on every cruise before, always posing, always seeking the spotlight. But this time, the host called me up first. "We'd like to invite Mrs. Margaret Cook, our guest of honor, for a special message." I walked onto the stage, feeling Rachel and Brooke's furious stares burning into my back. "Family doesn't always recognize the worth of those who raised them," I began, looking out at the hall. "But life always gives back, twice over, what you give to the world." I spoke about dignity, about being cast aside by those who should protect us, about the scars family rejection leaves, but also about gratitude and second chances. Tyler cried in the audience. I saw older women move to tears. Some young people clapped. At the end of my speech, I announced something nobody expected. "I've made a decision. My grandson Tyler, the only one who stood by me, will be the next in charge of this ship and of the social foundation I run. He represents everything good in our family: compassion, courage, and respect." A murmur swept through the room. Rachel went pale. Brian was in shock. Brooke laughed sarcastically, but it was a nervous laugh. Whoever recognizes a grandmother's true value deserves to be remembered forever. If you know someone who's ever been disregarded by their own family, tag them in the comments. Let's show that nobody has to cross this ocean alone. At the end of the night, Tyler hugged me, crying, "Grandma, I never imagined—" "You deserve it, my dear. Every ocean begins with a single drop of kindness." The whole ship could feel the change, and for the first time in years, I felt my voice finally echoed, not just off the walls, but in the hearts of those who needed to hear it. That night on the ship felt endless. I leaned against the railing on my cabin balcony, feeling the ocean wind in my hair and the salty taste of tears on my lips. The truth about me had already spread from bow to stern, and now everything was different. Or maybe finally, everything was just as it always should have been. No one came looking for me. Not Brian, not Rachel, not Brooke. Only Tyler, my grandson, knocked at the door. "Can I come in, Grandma?" I nodded silently. He sat beside me, holding my hands tightly, just like he used to when he was little and afraid of the dark. "Are you really going to donate all that money to the ship's project, Grandma?" he asked, his eyes wide, full of hope and a sincere anxiety I hadn't seen in a long time. "I am Tyler, and I'm also putting you in charge of this new project. You were the only one who saw beyond the labels and gossip." His eyes filled with tears. "Grandma, I don't deserve all this." "You do, because you were loyal to me when the rest of the world saw me as nothing but a burden." I felt the weight of that decision, but also a new lightness. I was no longer trapped in the role of annoying old woman, nor in the fear of upsetting my children. For the first time, I felt free. The next morning, the dining room felt like a silent courtroom. Everyone knew. Tyler stuck close to me, ignoring the sharp looks from his sister and parents. When Brian and Rachel finally approached, the air was tense, like a trial. "Mom, you need to rethink this. The project, the donation. You're rushing into this," Rachel began, trying to sound conciliatory, but her tone was cold as steel. I took a deep breath. "I'm not rushing, Rachel. I'm correcting an injustice," I replied, keeping my voice steady. Brian crossed his arms, avoiding my gaze. "We've always been a family, Mom. You didn't need to expose us like this." I smiled softly, but it was the smile of someone who's no longer afraid. "You exposed me long before any of this, when you treated me like a burden. And a burden is something you carry, but never truly value." Rachel was offended, turning her face away. Right then, Tyler stood up. "You know, Dad, Mom, I don't want any of Grandma's money, but I want to be someone she's proud of. You always said she just got in the way, but to me, she was always my safe harbor." The silence hurt more than any words. I looked around, feeling the eyes of strangers, friends, even the captain. Everyone suddenly truly saw me. And if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, comment below, share. Your words might help someone feel less alone. I left before the tears could fall. Tyler came with me. At my cabin door, he said, "Grandma, if I ever become half the person you are, I'll be happy." Pride and gratitude overflowed inside me. The sea outside was vast, infinite, and this time I was the one steering the ship of my life. I closed my eyes and promised, "Tomorrow, at last, it will be time for my final revelation." Want to know how it all ends? If you've made it this far, subscribe to hear part 2 in a few days. I woke up before sunrise. The ship rocked gently, and for a moment, I was that little girl again, dreaming of endless horizons. Only this time, I was at the helm. I put on my best blue coat, pinned my hair back with the old family brooch, and opened the curtains. The day was bright, the sky cloudless. It was the perfect setting for a new beginning. At breakfast, the dining hall was packed. Everyone was whispering, sneaking glances my way. Brian and Rachel's friends, the captain, even the staff seemed anxious. Brooke ignored me. Rachel wore a fake smile. Brian tried to act natural, but couldn't hide his nerves. Only Tyler was calm, right by my side, proud. When the captain took the microphone for the day's announcements, he called for my attention. "Maggie, would you like to say a few words?" I stood up. My hands trembled, but my voice came out stronger than ever. "I know many here judged me before knowing who I really was. I know what it's like to be ignored, ridiculed, called an annoying old woman. I know what it's like to hurt, not in the bones, but in the soul." A heavy silence filled the room. I continued, "But today, I want to say thank you, because it was thanks to that rejection that I discovered what I'm really made of. I didn't come here seeking revenge. I came to show that respect, loyalty, and compassion still matter, and that it's never too late for a new beginning." I saw Rachel's eyes fill with tears, Brian looking away, Brooke biting her lips in anger. The captain looked proud, or maybe ashamed by what he'd witnessed. And to close this chapter, I'm announcing here the creation of the Horizon Project on our ship, a fund to support elderly people in situations of abandonment. My grandson Tyler will be responsible, and he'll receive half the invested amount, $300,000, to lead this project with ethics and courage. I turned to Tyler, overcome with emotion, because in the end, what we leave behind isn't money, it's legacy. The hall erupted in applause. For the first time, I felt everyone was truly with me. Tyler was crying, the staff smiling, and even some of the couple's friends looked impressed. At the end, Brian came up to me, his voice trembling. "Mom, I'm sorry. I forgive you, but I won't forget. That's life, son. We learn through love or through pain. I hope you make better choices from now on." When I stepped out onto the balcony to look at the sea, Tyler hugged me. Grandma, you changed my life. I smiled. And you changed mine. Never forget, the one who laughs last, laughs best. The ship sailed on, carrying with it a new story, mine. And if you've made it this far, don't forget to like, comment with your own story, and share. Your voice could be the new beginning for someone else. And if you want to hear more real, life-changing stories, join the VIP group using the link in the pinned comment. Life, after all, is full of turning points.